What's up, big guys? It's your boy Miguel here to give you your daily dose of radiation. In today's video, we are covering PTO / vacation. How does it work? How many hours? And all that good stuff. So, to give you context, I am a night shift Xray tech. Been doing it for over 4 years. Trauma 3 ER in the great state of Texas. And I work ungodly amount of overtime by choice. But anyways, to the point. Now, PTO is essentially vacation or just paid time off. Don't get it confused with FMLA, which is for medical leave, and it's a little bit different. Okay? So, essentially, wherever you work, it all depends on the amount of hours, if you're full-time, if you're part-time, and if you're PRN. If you're PRN, you do not have PTO available. If you are full-time, part-time, which apparently that's the thing, you have a tiny amount, probably, I'd say half of the amount of hours that we do as full-time techs. And depending on the little brackets that you find yourself in as far as year-wise, obviously the longer you're at a place, you'll get more PTO. So for instance, like I think ours is from one year to 3 years, it's 185 hours that you're allowed to take off. And then if you don't use it, 80 hours can be rolled over to the next year. And they used to have a system where if you didn't use none of your PTO, you could just cash it out. Some places offer that. Ours apparently took it off because there was some people that just didn't take off, and then they try to cash out too many hours, and then they switched companies, and I'm not sure all the logistics behind it, but they took it away. So now if you don't take it off, you can carry 80 over, or the rest just gets burnt. Or you can donate it, which I thought, oh, okay, maybe you could, play the game of, hey, other night shift, you enjoy being off all the time. What if, hypothetically, I gave you some hours and then you let me pick up your shift? But apparently they don't let you do that, and it goes into a community pool of everyone, and then whoever needs it, or I'm not sure, it's like from I think it's like they give it to people with who are getting surgeries or something. There's a system, but you don't get to pick who those hours to. It just goes to a community pool. And at first you think, oh, it's a noble thing, fine, if you don't take off, you'll donate it. But then slowly, over the years of working in your institution, and you see how upper management and corporate is, and how it's almost like you're just another number. You just see how they treat you, you see how it all is just a job. And then at some point I was like, you know what? No, I'm just let it burn. If I'm just pick up a bunch of overtime and work and don't take off vacation, because with my job, 7 on, 7 off, technically speaking, for one of those 7 offs, you're not on call, you're just chilling. So it's like you kind of take a mini vacation, even though for 1 or 2 of those days, your brain is trying to recover from night shift. But technically speaking, it's like you get a mini vacation. You work half of the year-ish, if you account it. So technically, I don't have to really take off, even if my lady's like, oh, let's go do this, let's go do that. And if we schedule it right and it's on the 7 I'm off, then I really don't even have to take off. So it kind of works out better for me compared to if I was day shift, I would have to take way more. And then as far as me, I've been at my institution, once again, I said over 4 years. I believe mine is I can be allotted 230. I forgot how much it is to the top of my head. I never take off half of the time, so I really don't know on top of my head. There's people who burn all their PTO and don't like to work, and then even the few days they do work, they'll find ways to use their PTO or like, I don't know, teach they own, I guess. But I mean, I guess the older you get, it's a little bit different. If you don't need the money and you have the luxury to take off, I guess, go ahead. But like with this economy, and most of us are struggling, especially if you're fresh from school, you're just trying to make the bag. I'm sorry. You know, work holidays, weekends, whatever you can, because you've been a broke college student. Like, I've been there. I'm still kind of running it that way. But I believe after 10 years or 15 years, I forgot where you have to fall in, that you can get a max of like 300 and something amount of PTO hours, which is like they cap it off at that. And then, well, I mean, once you get to that status, like I believe they give you each year you stay, I forgot after how many years, they give you like a cash bonus. Like, I think after 10 years, they'll give you $1,000 every year. Like, during your anniversary, it's like 10 years, 15 years, 20, whatever they'll give you. I think the most is like 10,000 if you stay at your job for like 25 years. And I was like, who knows where we'll be by then. But anyways. And as far as like the holidays, and you'd be like, oh, Miguel, I want to take off during, you know, the major holidays. Depending on how your job works, you have to work, like if you're a full-time, you have to work 2 major holidays and 2 minor holidays. And at some places, depending on how they do their little scheduling thing, if you're one of the senior techs, you'll probably have higher priority to picking which days you work or which ones you're trying to be off. It's just something I've noticed from asking as a student different clinical sites. Ours just kind of works randomly. They'll just kind of draw. Well, technically, they'll try to make every year, if it's the same people still working, they'll kind of try to move the holidays they worked last year to a different one, just to kind of keep it even-ish. But that's where that lies. But anyways, essentially, if you work my shift and you're 7 on, 7 off, if I take a 7 off, I will be off for 3 weeks. And if you take 2 weeks off, you'll be off for a month. Depending on what's going off at work, sometimes you are, technically, the traditional is to be off 2 weeks. That's the, you know, the standard of every normal job. With my job, depending on what's going on and how the employment, and if we're fully staffed, you could take off those 2 weeks back to back and be off a whole month. Sometimes we're not that staffed and we don't have enough people, and they're like, yo, Miguel, we can let you take off 2 weeks, but it has to be like it can't be back to back. Like, it have to be like 1 month and then another month later on, to just for like to have people to cover your shifts. Now, if you work night shift like me, depending on who you have working at your establishment, like my shift as night shift is the hardest position to get anyone to work. Maybe it's just my people. I personally don't mind it. I pick up days, I pick up nights. I mean, obviously I prefer nights, but it's always harder to get shifts covered, so they struggle. So that's something that we deal with. Because they'll be burning their PTO. There's people that run through their PTO as soon as, because every year when you ever get hired, that's your anniversary date. There's people who literally burn all their PTO within like as soon as they can, they'll just start burning it right away, and then they'll have nothing, and then complain that if they're sick or if like, because the holidays, if it's a major holiday and it falls during the week, only the emergency room is open. So all the other techs who were scheduled to work like during the week, who work like at the patient outbuilding or in the main radiology, they have to be off. And usually you substitute your PTO for those days you didn't work to make your 40 hours or whatever. Some people burn all their PTO, and then when those falls, your check gonna be short, and some of them complain, and like the manager's like, well, you already used all your PTO, bro. Like, so, I don't know. Now, I will say, if you use it and you work my shift, like night shift, you do not get the full shift pay. For instance, I get like an extra 3 and some change extra an hour just for working night shift. You get base pay. So whatever your base pay is, whatever that is, let's say hypothetically it's like $30, for instance. We'll throw a number. With the shift diff, it'd be like an extra $3, so it'd be 33. So if you run it through the whole 7, and at the end of the month, like at the end of those two back, like 2 7s you ran that you worked, your check was, let's say, $3,000 with the shift diff or whatever. You run it back and they pull just you get only base pay, so that check now, instead of being $3,000 that you're used to, it's going to be like a $2,200. Or it's a big difference. Like I remember the first time I took PTO and I took, my first time off, and I looked at that check, I thought, like, I was like, oh, maybe $3 ain't don't make it no difference. And then I was like, I was used to a set amount of money. And then when I got that check, and I was like, dang, that's a big cut when you're used to, the extra money. And depending on what's going on with your finances or whatever, like that can make a difference if you're not ready. So majority of the time, I really don't take PTO just because of that. And I'm just, still young, still want to make money, don't, a little bit different. Versus, some of the older techs who've literally been here for like 20, 15 years, and they'll all burn their PTO. At that point, they just need a little 40 an hour base pay. Everything's paid off, and they just chilling, and they'll burn their PTO and stuff. So that's something to just keep in mind if you do this job. Now, I will say, during certain seasons, during the winter, they may shut off, because like essentially you have to put your PTO, usually it's a month in advance, sometimes 2 months. Now, depending on how many people take off, they can cut it early. There was one time apparently during the summer that everyone took off, and they had to shut it down really early, which apparently pissed off a bunch of people. And I'm right now taking some time off in vacation in the summer, and I haven't been off in like, I want to say like a year and a half, almost 2 years. I haven't taken any days off. So like they shut it off, but I already told the manager about it. So technically I got higher priority than everyone just because I just never take off, which apparently pissed off people. But I was like, bro, I'm always here. So there's that. And then depending on how you call, because we do have to take call, depending on how you schedule your PTO, if you're full-time like me, either you'll end up having to pick up an extra call day or extra 2 call days before you go on your vacation or after your vacation. Usually that's how it falls, depending on how they stagger them. Usually that's what happens, because you're off that month and you technically didn't have. It kind of makes it fair, and a bunch of people's taking off, your like days on call is going to be a little bit off depending on how they deal with that. But overall, it's a pretty good gig. I mean, you can have a pretty good lifestyle if you take off. I'm still chasing the bag, so it's a little bit different. I hope to one day, be stable enough and be good to where I can actually burn all my PTO and know what that's like. But for now, you're here educating y'all, and we're here running up the bag at night. Highly recommend it. Right now, it looks like we got, what, two EMSs? I don't know who the doctor is, so usually Wednesday, historically speaking, is pretty chill. Always my last night is pretty chill, so we'll see how it goes. So as always, it's been your boy Miguel. See you on the next one.